the idea of this urban reading forum is really all about why we thought of doing it. And then I will ask Swastik to walk everybody through the website, the way in which the forum is going to be organized, the technique, the technology, those kinds of details, the logistics. And then we will have Gautam and Prasad, Gautam Bhan and Prasad Shetty, who are here, who are our colleagues and the lead readers in the first session, also speak about how they have done the annotations and where we are hoping all of this will go. And then after that, we will if we have time, then Swastik and I also will talk a little bit about how we did the annotations, and then we'll open it up for questions. The goal is to keep it really short, about 45 minutes, so that we get started. You all will know how to log in and use the platform. And then maybe a couple of weeks from now, we can come back to meet and review how this is going and then build organically. So very short introduction. I have been teaching and writing and reading for many, many years. In the last 20 years, I have had a lot to do with teaching graduate students and undergraduate students in many different universities. Over the years, I've seen a significant change in reading habits. And a few years ago, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, when I was working with my interns, I suddenly realized that it's not just reading habits, but it's just the physical process of reading itself has completely changed. So people don't any longer turn pages or scribble on pages. People are scrolling, swiping, and the very gestures of thinking about reading have completely changed. So earlier I would say I'm turning the page like this. Now you say I'm swiping the page like this. Now the difference in this is that if you're not interacting with the page physically, if you're not scribbling notes, if you're not following sentences, if you're not reading in the margins, if you're not occupying and inhabiting the margins in a text, then what are you really doing, right? This has become a question also in other ways in many of the classes that I've taught, which is that particularly in India, but also in many other countries like India, the text that even in reading intensive courses, people struggle because we're not taught how to read. The complexity then becomes even more as academics is no longer simply just academics where you read, but you are having to read many different kinds of texts, including policy texts, legal texts, petitions, affidavits, very complex theoretical pieces, empirical work, each of them requiring a very different approach. Now, we can say that this is stuff that you will have to learn on your own, or we can recognize that reading is a social activity. It's a shared activity. It's an activity like any others that requires skill and training and experience. And maybe there are ways in which we can make it easier and more enjoyable and less lonely activity by figuring out some way of doing it together. So at that point of time, Swastik and Gautam and Prasad, and we were thinking about what kinds of things could we be doing through Hyderabad Urban Lab School. And Gautam said, I want to teach a course on reading. Just as I was thinking, I wanted to teach a course on walking. And we thought that there are these basic, simple things in life that we all want to teach because we learn a lot in the process of teaching those things. And Swastik said that this is a lovely idea. We can see if we can actually turn it into something that is tech-enabled. So that's how it all came together. And then we started, on the one hand, trying to build an application that will make it easy. And on the other hand, we started talking with people about whether they would be interested in something like this. And it seemed like both of them were coming together. So today we are gathered here to try and see how we can take this forward. Like I said, Swastik will walk us through the platform and how it is to be used. And then Gautam and Prasad will talk about how they have done the annotations and what they're expecting from this. And hopefully we will build this together. I have a very good feeling about how this is happening. I'm seeing a lot of old friends in the room. I'm seeing Abdul Malik Simone here, which is a lovely thing to experience. Obviously, it has caught the attention of a lot of people across the world, and we're hoping that it'll build into something nice. Yeah, Swastik, you want to take on?
Sure. Thanks, Anand. So first of all, thank you all so much for being here. So the idea I wanted to just sort of clarify. First thing is, of course, just logistics of this particular meeting. Please put your questions in the chat box. This is a meeting format, not a webinar format. And we will see how much time we have actually for question and answers, because the whole effort and initiative of the Urban Reading Forum is a persistent effort. It's not a one-time thing at all. In fact, it's designed to be lasting for the next, forever actually, if we can manage that. And so there will be a lot of space for discussion. That's the whole point of this exercise. So right now on the sort of idea, the approach that we're trying to put together, and also some of the technicalities that I will familiarize you with, and Andrew is going to support you all in that in the next few days also. We want to basically make sure that those questions are like directed to those 2, 3 things, and so it will be really useful if you can put them in the chat box basically. Having said that, now the idea is that at the core of this is a reading forum. That's something I wanted to emphasize again and again. I'm going to come to that point again and again, and because the fact is that we come from certain disciplines, and we come from certain practices and certain experiences, and are learning new things, and those disciplines sort of teach us that there are a few, let's say, texts that we have to go through. Now, sometimes they're different. Sometimes they're when I say different, they're of different shape and form, and they're different content types, and they're made by different authors and made for different purposes and different audiences, and so on and so forth. And so, over a certain amount of time, we get familiar with the different, let's say, registers within our field. Especially within our field, I mean, not all of them, but some of them we get used to certain registers. So if I work more on policy, I get used to the reading of a policy document. If I'm working on housing, I get used to reading a canonical text on housing. I get used to reading these things, and I sort of build my skills on that, and on how to do it. Well, in one way, how to do it really quickly, or to do it in a way that doesn't take up all my time, because we're always, almost stretched for time. But also to see, what kind of how things change over time, for example, whether tonality is changing, or whether the positionality is changing, or whether some of the words, the meaning of those words are changing, and how are they challenged and get modified, and so on and so forth. So now the thing is that if I read on a particular, if I have expertise, or some experience in a particular field, in a particular discipline, let's say it's on urbanization, or something on those lines, it really always helps to actually read things from other disciplines as well, other types of documents from other disciplines as well, basically. So what I'm trying to say over here is that the forum is an effort to basically not just go drill down into certain topics, but to not necessarily focus on the content of that topic as it is, as it is generally understood, or to create knowledge about that topic itself, but to generate knowledge about how things are written about that topic by different people in different registers for different audiences. And that's at the heart of this whole exercise, that this is the entire forum that we're going to show you today, and hopefully you'll all join and check it out, is not designed to teach you about the topic as much as it is strongly focused on teaching you how to read different forms of writing on a particular topic, basically. So the idea is to more understand how does a policy document, or let's say a policy document or a scheme document, how does that sort of, what is the structure and form of that? How does a canonical text, basically something which is written historically and has a strong meaning throughout the time since it was written, or how does a academic article basically carry meaning in a particular sector? So sort of just to clarify, we are not actually teaching about the sector or the discipline. We're trying to teach you how to read. We're trying to teach through this platform, or sort of co-teach or co-learn essentially on how to read different types of text. And of course, one of the biggest questions, I have not seen the chat box yet, but I'm sure the questions of language will definitely come up, and that's a very, very valid question. And so within whatever resources we are able to put together at the moment, we are absolutely limited right now to English text. There's no doubt about that. But I don't see any reason, if the idea picks up and people like it, and I don't see any reason why this cannot be extended to more languages as well, because it's a simple annotation tool that we're using. You can type in literally in any language. And I know that these tools are actually used for translation of long, complex documents, such as the IPCC report, for example. So it's translated into whether it is Swahili or whether it is Spanish or whether it is Japanese. It is translated into these languages using annotations and in a collaborative sort of way. So translation and looking at the language text from different languages is something that we aim to pick up. But how it expands and what sectors in a way we want to sort of focus on, what kinds of writing we want to focus on, which is the most important thing over here, is something that we hope will develop based on the kind of response we get from you all and the kind of feedback we get. So the kind of, let's say, how this will evolve will basically depend on how people want it to evolve, is essentially where I'm coming. So that's basically at the heart of it. It's a reading forum. It's built as a kind of a forum format. So you're used to these different kinds of bulletin board services or forum where you go for, sometimes you go there for some technical help, sometimes for some topic and so on and so forth, right? So there are all these forums. So it's built very much on that kind of a platform. And so what we have is basically a bunch of sort of a landing page, and I'll just show you all this, but like we have a bunch of forums, out of which we've basically implemented one forum, which includes 4 readings on the sector of housing. And these are 4 different regions. I'll just show you what they look like. And so as and how we evolve and grow, basically we add more forums or fora, basically with a bunch of topics and from different sectors and so on. So let me just show you quickly what it looks like so you get familiar with it. First of all, let me just put down what it is called, and it is called the urbanreadingforum.com. It is on the chat box. Everyone, yes, to everyone. Urban Reading Forum is the place. You'll have to go in and sign in and register, but don't do that just yet. Let me just show it to you first, and then you can sort of, so that once you're a little bit more familiar with the whole tool and how to use it, basically, then you can go and register and start looking at the way we are trying to build about these reading communities. So let me just share my screen. Yes, let's do this. Let's do this. And oops, yeah. So here we are. So this is basically what the urbanreadingforum.com homepage looks like. It's basically, as you can see, an effort by the Hyderabad Urban Lab and my company, Fast Liquidation Associates. So it's kind of a collaboration. We are doing different parts of it and so on and so forth. So you'll see a basic introduction to what this is supposed to be about, and a few sort of links over here to various parts of the website, right? And so I will go right to the main thing, which is basically the forum itself. And the forum looks something like this. And so you have something called an open forum, which is basically a free and open forum at the moment. And as I said, we will add more forums over here. So the first one, we have basically something called readings on housing. And when I click on this readings on housing, basically I go to a brief description of what this overall forum is about, within which there are these 4 topics, basically. So there are each topic is basically equivalent to a reading, one particular reading. So the first one you're seeing is basically called Housing, Common Sense and Urban Policy in India by Gautam Bhatt. So Gautam has written this text, and he's also, you can see over here, he's also annotated how that text is. I'll just show you what this whole annotation thing looks like, right? And so there's a PDF link and so on and so forth. You will see all of this only once you sign in. So for signing in, you have to basically go here and create an account and all that. Let me, but I'm sure you'll work that out. That's fairly simple. You just have to create an account. It's a set of email and a password. That's the most important thing. And then you can see there are 4 other readings over here. So if I go into any one of these, let me take you to the one that I have annotated, which is basically the guidelines of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. So my purpose over here is basically to familiarize people who are whether you're familiar with this kind of a scheme document and whether it is of some use to you in your work or your studies and so on and so forth. And my purpose is to basically sort of unpack this policy document in various ways. And so and what I've chosen to do, basically, I've given over here a brief introduction as to what the document is about and where it is positioned in the set of government documents that usually come out, where it gets positioned. So this is basically a scheme document, for example. And what I've done is basically I've just given a certain, how I have broken down the document, or rather arrived at some kind of lenses or framework to basically look at. So I've just said that there is something about the tonality of the document, there's something about the meanings it creates and the effects it has in the words that it uses, basically, right? So over here, this is what it looks like, and when I basically go to the document itself, it'll open automatically on a new tab. You see over here the document which with all of its annotations. Now, this is the sort of critical part of this whole exercise, is this annotation toolbar that you're seeing on the right hand side, right? Now, this is something called hypothesis, which is basically, let me, where is that chat window gone? Hypothesis. Can somebody please type in that chat window what the website hypothesis.is? Hypothesis.is. It's a collaborative annotation tool, which is what we are using, leveraging basically for our Urban Reading Forum. So what Hypothesis does is that you have to create an account on Hypothesis also, and you open this PDF over here. Over here, you open the PDF through pressing this PDF link. You normally will have to for every browser it will be slightly different. So let me just quickly explain that. When you normally click a PDF on a browser, it will normally open on a new tab. You can right click, open on a new tab, or whatever it is, right? Now, for certain browsers which are quite common, such as Chrome, almost always or very often will have a reader or a PDF reader plugin or an extension already installed, usually Adobe or something like that. Now, the thing is that Adobe plugin, the extension of Adobe basically to read the PDF has a problem with Hypothesis. So it won't come, the Hypothesis layer will not come on top of that, right? So it's best to use the native PDF reader and install the Hypothesis extension, which looks something like this, what you can see on my top right. I am using some other browser. It's called Brave. So I'm just testing it out basically. So you can see this extension that is, it will come in Chrome as well on top right, H dot. That's the Hypothesis extension. And so when you go to the PDF, you can basically click that Hypothesis extension, and you can see now over here that it's turned on, right? And it's turned on, and you basically have to sign in to your Hypothesis account. So you have to basically create two accounts, which is one is on the Urban Reading Forum. That's the only way you can access these fora and access the PDFs and so on and so forth. And you have to create an account on Hypothesis to basically access the annotation toolbar. So once you do that, you get this, and you can see I've already signed in over here. And what you can see is basically all the annotations that I have made on the documents. Now, how this works is that each annotation is basically a highlight of the text. So for example, I've highlighted this footnote over here. So it says something like all the amendments incorporated have been linked with footnotes in respective pages. And I made a comment about how to think about that when a policy document or a scheme document actually has a history to it, has a annotated history to it, has basically a reference history to it, and what it means in terms of its meanings and its evolution as a document itself. Or for example, you can see something like, let's say, I'll have things like, these are the abbreviations that have been given in this particular document. And I'm just saying that it's like, behaves a bit like a quiz. So your level of experience is actually, how many of these do you know is basically a reflection of your level of experience or your ability to do learning by rote. But anyway, so you'll find sort of different kinds of comments over here. Like for example, you can see I have about 39 annotations on this entire document, and similarly there will be when I go to say somebody else's document, for example, let me try and open one more. Yeah. So let's say I pick up Anand's document over here and I open it in a new tab. So what happens is that it will open it in this kind of a reader, which does not allow the Hypothesis extension to work on top of it. So what I need to do is when I click Hypothesis again over here, it will turn it on and it will reload it in the native reader, and the annotation toolbar will open up on the right hand side that you can see over here, right? So I pull that out, and here are the annotations. There are about 34 annotations done by Anand basically on this document by angles on how Prodhan solves the housing question. So here's a canonical text. So this is so I guess this is the only basic introduction that I want to give you at the moment. This is how it works. Now, once you're signed in and you have an account on Hypothesis, you can actually go in over here, and for example, I can say I can reply over here. So I can say whatever, reply over here, something, and I can basically post this. Now I can post this to public, which is what the only only group that we have created at the moment. In fact, it's not a group at all. It's just an open forum. So anybody can read these documents as long as they're able to access this PDF on this particular location on the website, right? So this is posted to public in that sense. So I cannot, it's public to the extent that for people who can access this PDF over here. Later on, we will create certain cohorts and groups, and that's something that's really important to us as well. For people interested in particular topics, let's say, or particular types of reading. So there may be cohorts around reading academic articles. There may be cohorts around reading World Bank documents. There may be cohorts around reading, comics. So we may create certain cohorts basically in the future, and then you will be able to post to those particular groups. So otherwise, you can make it public, or you can make it only me at the moment. Right. So that's how it works. So you basically, what you do is you reply to these things, you read the annotations, you read the text, you read the annotation, you read the text, you read the annotation, and you make sense of what that language means. You may agree, you may disagree, and whatever you do, you can, how you feel about what your reaction to those annotations is. You basically put down as a reply, and every we'll have a cycle of basically updation and replies and things like that. The four readers, right now we are only four readers on this forum at the moment. That's Gautam, Prasad, Anand, and me. And so we will reply to those annotations, but at least other people who now come into this forum will not only read the annotation by the lead reader, but also the annotations by other people. So of course, you've got to be kind and considerate when making those comments, but at the same time, try and be purposeful about it. The whole point is to learn how to read. Deep conversation about the content of the text is not something that we're looking at least on the annotation side. If you have comments about the text, which you obviously will, you're free to sort of add come to this let's say the main topic page and basically leave a comment over here. Right. So this is about the content itself. You can leave some comments, or if you want to talk about the text of the document, then it's basically within the annotation platform. Right. So that's the most simple sort of run through of how this whole thing works. And you'll find all of this also available on the help page. So how this whole thing works is basically available over here. It's fairly simple, and Andrew has also kindly put together a desktop screen share kind of a video for this, which will go up on the YouTube channel, on the HUL YouTube channel, basically. So you'll be able to look at that. It's nothing very complicated. Simple thing. Create two accounts, one on the Urban Reading Forum, one on Hypothesis, and just come to the annotations and have fun. Your browser may require a little tweaking, the addition of the Hypothesis extension, and so on and so forth. That you will, I'm sure, most of you will be able to work out. But please, there is a help page and a video also available. Right now, I just last thing from my side right now is that we are the forum is open at the moment. So the entire housing, 4 readings on housing are open and free at the moment. We want to try it out. We want to see how people react to it and what kind of requests come out over here. Later on, we said, we will create certain cohorts and want to do live classes and things like that we will come to towards the end of this meeting itself. And but there'll also be an option to pay, basically, which is not live at the moment, but we want to basically encourage people to pay a little bit for subscriptions and helping us maintain the server and things like that. That's the kind of monies that we'll be looking for to actually keep the service. We just wanted to complete that part. And yeah, so that's basically what it is. And do try it out. Do me a small favor and take your time to register, like do it over the day if you can, because I haven't stress tested the server, honestly. We've tested it to some extent, but if hundreds of people do, I'm not sure actually if it will take it, but it'll come right back up. But still, take your time and do it. Do your registration over today, later today, or even tomorrow, basically, right? So that's basically it from my side. So anything else? I think Anant or Gautam, Prasad, anybody else wants to add anything to this, or shall we move on to your annotations and how you've spoken about the text themselves? Are there anything in the chat? Let me just quickly see. No questions. Okay. Okay. No questions right now. So we'll move ahead. Thanks so much, folks who basically put down nice things in the chat box. I'll hand over to Gautam. Do you want me to keep sharing my screen, Gautam, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Can do. So I can't see myself. So if someone can remove the spotlight, perfect. Okay. So folks, just, if if you think through, just to take you through the idea of what it means to have a first annotation in the site, it just basically means that there is somebody who we are working with who has done a first round of annotations on the site in different ways. Right? Now, typically, we'll try to have somebody who's actually quite closely connected to the subject. In this case, it's opening. So for time and headspace reasons, I have annotated a text I have written. I would have, ideally, we will do it for other people, but it was the only one that would have gotten done. So therefore, we did it. But to think a little bit just about, I just want to take you through a few of my annotations. And the idea there is for this to be available to everybody. And I think this will be really useful because the idea of a reading forum is that you also read to read, which means that we're hoping that you actually pick up this housing forum, even though you don't work on housing. In which case, if you're able to pick up a forum that is new to you in terms of theme or topic, then it will be really useful at some point to have a set of first annotations, right, that are there from someone who can help you think through the complexities of the text. So treat that as that. But really the core of this forum is that ideally, if we have enough registrations, we will group people into groups of 5, 6, 8, 10, deliberately try and mix different folks so that you're reading not with hundreds of people on a public post, you're reading with 8 to 10 people so that you can follow each other's annotations and comments. So the whole prospect is to read collectively with a set of other people who are reading on the forum in groups, right? And every time the group wants an external reference, you have a first reference, something like this. So I can take you through a bit on the way I framed this piece. So you'll see also that in the forum on housing, there's a very deliberate choice to have 4 very different types of pieces. There's a kind of policy analysis piece, which is this one. There is a policy direct first policy document, like a scheme guideline that Swastik showed you. There is a more ethnographic and experiential and storytelling narrative that Prasad annotated. And there is a kind of conceptualization and theoretical conceptualization that Anand annotated. And we're going to try and keep this together so that one actually gets into the habit of the way reading these different types of texts also require a slightly different method, right? So you'll see in my annotations that what I'm talking about is not the content, right? So if you see, for example, Swastik, if you click on the gains on gender, where I have commented it, right? The annotation says, as you read, try and relate to examples in your own sector. Can you see the author draw parallel to, from a housing policy, think about gender, what's the kind of control F test to see how you read a housing policy and say, wait, does this say anything about the environment? Does it say anything about spatiality? Does it say anything about planning, right? So where do we look there? So if you scroll down to the second comment on ignore, block, evade, suppress, censor, or silence, there's a prompt to you that there is a difference here. Think about the word choice and the fact that the author is using 6 or 7 words that are very similar to each other, but mean slightly different things, right? And it also allows you to think about what word you would use. And this is a way in which the annotations are also telling you in a way to talk to the reading as you're reading, right? To engage with it, to not absorb it passively. One of the things that brings us together is that all of us in this forum are very committed to the idea that reading is not a passive act. It is an act of engaging, of responding, of conversing, etc. So if you scroll through randomly, Swastik, through a couple of pages, I'll give you just another example we can pick up from somewhere. Say, for example, let me give you one more on the next page, I think is what I want. So for example, just stop here, Swastik, see the point on common sense in the first line. So you'll see here that, the reference here is to say, look, this is a piece that's deliberately not engaging with theoretical literature on policy analysis, but there is a reference here, right? It's not a direct use of Gramsci, but there is one reading, one level of reading is to link this idea of common sense. So the note says, look, this is a nod here. If you're interested in abstracting this, which is a way in which, this is what sits behind this, then you can follow this idea. And I'm just marking that for you over there, right? So, and if you scroll up for a second to the page before this, Swastik, to just this point where it says Caldera, the citation, Caldera 27.3, yeah, that last line. And this is sort of where, for those of you who may not be academic readers at all, making you familiar with saying there is this sort of citation system academics use that we never bother to explain to anybody else, right, on where it's coming from and what one does with this citation. So this is decoding that and saying, look, this is what that means. Think about where this comes and says, again, if this part is interesting you, pick up this reading and go here, go to the references, right? Pick up 2, 3 from here. So you'll see that the annotations, at least my way of doing this annotation, every first annotator will do it their own way, but my way of doing these annotations is to actually say nothing about housing at all. And I want that reading to allow you to say, think of the method of this argument. Don't think of the particularity of the topic. Now, if you're a person interested in housing, you will get one and one free. It's like a discount sale. You'll also get the content topic. But the idea is to encourage you to read unfamiliar texts, because that's in a way we begin to understand structural similarities in text, even though they're not our topic. And one of our pet peeves really in our own reading is that because we get busy, because we enter programs, we stop reading things outside our core area of work, and this is our way of getting out of that in a way that's there, right? And I'll maybe take one more example right from the end. So I think just take something off the last pages. I'll stop you somewhere in the way. So if you go to the end there, just stop here. Let's see what, yeah, so just click this. I'm not certain that enough such actors exist in the Indian urban scenario, right? And so now again, so thinking about how here there is a way in which a call to practice is being made. It's a suggestion for you as a reader to imagine what you can do after reading a piece like this. And then it's an annotation to remind you to say, stop reading now for a second and think. The idea is not to get like the takeaway summary kunji of this text, right? To think a little bit about, we're sort of almost sort of introducing what in Hindi we would call a sense of therav, right? A sense of pause. Stop in the middle of a reading, engage with it, stop to think and say, where do I take this? What's it making me think of? How do I connect it to something else? So that's the fun of it. That's the fun of reading that's not passive. So in these annotations, that's the way I've annotated the text. Now you can keep these, you can respond to them, but hopefully remember, you will be reading this in a group with 6 or 7 other people. And their annotations will also be with you. You will add your own. So the idea is to thicken that sense of collective reading with the conversation in the annotations through text with one guiding first annotation. So I'll hand back to you, sir.
Thanks, Gautam. That was great. So far, let me just see quickly if there's any questions in that chat box.
We're okay, right?
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, an X-ray of the text. That's one way to look at it. That's what Anand said. I'd like to invite Prasad now because he's
Sorry,
annotated.
one sec. Just before
Yes,
you go,
please.
just go down.
Yes,
just I saw a point in the chat on references. You will see
yes.
my note on the references, and it will say, "Do not stop reading here."
Correct.
This is exactly what we all do. Not skip this section. Sit with the references, give yourself the next bibliography, pick up a couple of things, right? So that was my one thing, is like everyone just reaches this point and ends. But this is not, this is the, in some way, the meatiest part, because this is also what's giving you an archive of future resources on a new topic, right? So it starts you reading further.
Thank you. So I'll invite Prasad now to talk about his annotations on his document. Let me go back. Prasad, you can just start speaking whenever you are.
Yeah, yeah. Open it, because I'm unable to open it for some reason
Oh,
since morning. And the annotations are where?
they're coming up.
Yeah, they're coming up.
Here they are.
Okay. So, so one of the challenges, and this is something that happened in our conversation, one of the things that we were discussing is how does one kind of, uh, fold in non-clarified text, in the sense text which is not necessarily academic, but in the range of fiction, in the range of images, graphic novel, in the range of diaries and notes and stuff like that. And how does one fold in them? And this is one of the pieces that I had written long ago, and and together we decided that I'll be annotating this, which is again quite strange for me to annotate my own text. But the way I went about it was because after I wrote this text, and this text was written over many years, and it had many versions of in which it got published, because it was from a 300 word, it became a 7,000 word. I think this is something like 6,000 or something like that. And and a number of people who had read this text kind of came back with their questions. And these annotations were more of answering those questions, which came to me from this text. And I went on to kind of, and those texts, those questions were quite strange actually. In one place, for example, go down please. In one place, so the city without family, or 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 the whole uh, central city being that city of men. So somebody asked, how did I get this? That the city was 1920 city of Bombay, the central part was completely men. And then I explained it over here, saying that I was going to census document, and actually it is the male versus female ratio was 600 to 1,000 or 500 to 1,000, and it was very, very clear that it was a city full of men. So the annotations were basically answering those questions. And for me, it was also, the annotations were also, I don't know, we used to write, we used to take prints, and we used to write on the margins, and we used to call it margin notes. And these notes were sometimes, these notes were very clear, were evident only to us, because it was written either very small or in this kind of writing, which was very unclear to anybody else. Sometimes it had these drawings, sometimes it had these kind of questions, sometimes it had these diagrams, or the way in which, and this format doesn't allow that, of course, but the way I was thinking about these annotations was in terms of those margin notes, which were also in many ways personal. So I was also thinking about how not a cohort but an individual will read, because it's also interesting to read it individually, because a lot of things get completed in your mind, and in the range of texts which are fictional and non-clarified, they allow you to complete things in your mind, so they leave it incomplete, and then a lot of things get processed, and one gets herself involved in the process of closing or not closing, or going ahead with the text. So I think that the notes also allow this format also allows. And in that range, how does one kind of then deal with this whole idea of sharing one's notes, because it is personal, and it is also it is also kind of, it makes sense to yourself. Then how does one kind of work this out in a cohort? And for that, I've kind of left it open at the moment, and see what kind of responses may come, may not come, etc. But 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 the challenge for me still remains, in the sense, how does one deal with images? Because images, and how does one deal with drawings? And I think Andrew and Swastik will kind of help us to kind of overcome those issues also. The last thing I want to say, I mean, and there are a lot of things, like people were asking me about a certain policy, clarifications, sometimes some drawings somewhere, sometimes some other things, some terms that I was using. So a lot of some other references that were used, because the text does not have, like most fictional works, they don't have notes and references, So where was it coming from? Where was I borrowing? Recently, I saw Amitav Ghosh writing a book on his references for the trilogy. So, which is interesting. Like, actually, it's quite a nice book, kind of, spend time with this. I think it's called Smokes and Ashes or something like that. Basically, it's a book of annotation. It's a book of which is annotating the three other books. So yeah, I think uh, a, a completely different world gets opened uh, when when you start writing your margin notes on the computer, and I think and try to share it. I think that experience would be interesting, and we're looking forward for for uh, for kind of living through that experience also. Figuring out a way to kind of live through that. Yeah, so I was thinking.
Great. Thanks so much, Brother. That's a very nice way of looking at it, that sharing your margin notes, which is not something I used to doing, but yeah, why not? I mean, that's how we start collaborating. But yeah, so I think let me just quickly again take a look, or has anybody got anything? One of our moderators can basically tell me what's happening in the chat window. Can we also export the
We are
annotations?
responding to the chat window. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. All right. Lovely, fantastic. Thank you all so much. So yeah, so we're at 5:45, and so I'll just move on to the last 5-10 minutes over here. I know there'll be more questions and thoughts and all of that, but let me move on to the last part over here. Back to Anand. Of course, there are a lot of people here who have worked on this, and without them, this would not be possible at all. Andrew, who has been part of this initiative right from the beginning, and also Bhashwati, who has sort of tried to edit the annotation. So we're trying to achieve a certain kind of cognitive load, a certain kind of ballpark, or where it should land. Each of these annotations should land in terms of pushing the idea that this is about the reading itself and not necessarily so much about the content. So those ideas also, Bhashwati has helped us shape those very, very fundamentally. So she's been reviewing our annotations and given us notes on how to work with them, or how to sort of not standardize them, but at least get them into the same kind of a cognitive loading as well as purpose, basically. So thanks to these two people especially, and of course a bunch of other people as well who've been working on this. But yeah, so this is what we have at the moment, and I'm going to stop sharing screen and hand over back to Anand to start closing, basically. Yep.
Thanks, everyone. This has been a lovely evening, and it comes after many, many months of waiting. So we're very excited. But I just want to open this up briefly for any questions, any thoughts that anyone from the people who are present here might have. I don't want to call on people. I know there are many people that I can recognize, and I just love to see all of them. But please just raise your hand and speak, or just unmute yourself and speak. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes to see if anyone wants to add anything, and then we will move on. Yes, Sonali.
Hi, sir. As a student, just wanted to ask something. Are the paid subscriptions will be reasonable price for students like us, or people who have just submitted their thesis and still looking for a job? Yeah, we want to learn, but yes, learning comes with finances also. So just a small bit of consideration if the team can take it. Thank you.
The answer is actually very simple. This is actually being built in the global south. It's meant for the global south. And it's actually run by a non-profit organization. So there is no possibility of this being prohibitively expensive for anyone. Initially, we are actually looking at the free forum. The current forum is completely free. And there are some ideas of bringing in some revenues to keep this going as a shared activity that can sustainably grow. But Swastik will tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically there are costs associated with it, and we want to just basically have those, recover those costs, basically server maintenance, all those kind of things. So there will be some way to pay if you want to, and internationally also as well, you can do that. So that is there. The content itself, it's basically like bit of an academic review. No, you get journal articles to review and things like that. It's literally at that level. So it's largely four of us have just spent our time and done it. I don't see why more people won't do that. And so it's basically that this whole, it's not based on a revenue model, it's based on a pay as you go and cover the costs kind of model basically. But what I think will be important is, as and how this grows, we'll have to figure out how to sort of moderate and stop, not stop, but like sort of have like, there is the chance that certain text will get overcrowded with annotation. So we need to know at what point to sort of roll it over into a group or a cohort, or, those kinds of things. So some kind of a, when I say moderation, I mean a curation moderation kind of an exercise to prevent the most sort of, obvious issues from taking. So that's something that we need to get someone, or, somebody will have to do that. Right now it's going to be us. So yeah, so first of all, we're going to test it up, and then we're going to develop it. I am imagining multiple fora, multiple of them. I mean, there's ones on housing. We went with something which is honestly something we are all familiar with, safe and so on and so forth. But I still think that it'll have value, because a lot of people, new people will come to, this forum with no knowledge of how Prasad thinks, or Gautam thinks, or Anand, or something, whatever it is. They'll get a sense of how people in the practice are and research are basically thinking about these things. So that's the idea. So we will obviously have some sticky posts in the forum. For example, you may have a recommendation to make, that please annotate this particular text, or let's annotate this text together. Here's an interesting text, and so we'll have a sticky post for suggestions and things like that. That's one idea. We'll reach out to more people to do annotations for us, basically. So more of these readers, what we're calling readers, first annotators, will basically, we'll create some kind of a group, and increasing group on that, because that's the way I think we could go. I'm hoping people will contribute their time and effort for that, and the next steps is basically going to be about, as soon as we start getting some reaction, there are one or two live classes that we want to do on this. So basically, we're all looking forward to that. So we'll basically create these cohorts of 20 people or something like that, is my imagination, and have live events maybe over a couple of hours, once a month or once in 2 months, if we can manage it, to do live events of walking through those annotations, so that people can actually do the reading, and they're thinking about the reading as a group, as a collective, as Anand had mentioned. So that's the plan. So watch out, mostly it will happen through HUL's social media channels and things like that. So we'll ask when we'll invite applications or whatever it may be. We'll figure out how to do that, but we'll create cohorts and do some live events as well, with these readers, with these 4 people basically. And yeah, those are the broad sort of plans. I think that's mostly what I wanted to say. That's the direction we imagine. Let's hope it works out basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I will just say that the idea is to try and reinvent different ways of interacting and socializing, because a lot of things have been completely out of our control. A lot of our lives have become very passive recipients of things. And so starting with texts, we are saying that let's try and figure out how we can relate to texts a lot more actively. And that's the goal. And I was just looking at Malik commenting in the chat box, people actually doing something to circumvent the dictatorship of Instagram to interact substantially again. Thank you, HUL, for your dedication and work. Thank you, Malik, for giving us that anthem of resistance. I'm really happy to see that. Yeah. This is what we've been talking about all along.
Yeah. Sounds good. We're almost at 6, there's 5 minutes left. But so if there's also wonderful people who are volunteering. That's so nice of you, really. That's such a. So I think it has to take some reach a critical mass, and we have to create those cohorts, and we will definitely be in touch. So please take the next couple of days, register on the forum, try it out, make your replies, and let's see whether this has a life, gain the life of its own. Basically, that's the whole point.
And just one thought since you guys are probably going to be the first readers on the forum, as you guys register, we may try a few things with you. If there's a lot of people to register, we may create some small groups of 20. If there's few, we may leave it public. So just give us a little bit of latitude to move you around a bit and try some things. And we may also reach out in the next couple of weeks with a quick feedback check-in. Is it working? Can we do it better? So just a little support on that actually would be very, very welcome.
And one final thought from me is that to me, The ultimate vision for this is not how much money this might make in a year or how many texts we have read, but how much of a network can this grow into over the next few years? And that's the real test. That if we can grow into a huge network of people who are sharing what we are reading and our own relationships of love and hate with texts, I think that's the best that can happen. I mean, the text that I myself read is one in which Engels actually annotates Proza's writing. So I was basically reading the annotations of a master annotator who demolishes what he reads. So it's like that, right? That's the kind of thing that we'll have to build. Prasad, do you want to add anything?
No, I think I think it's a nice thing to kind of end with Engels. I think the one of the key texts which kind of shaped most of us in our thinking about housing, property, and land. So yeah, welcome everybody, and I think that's the and add in the annotations and more texts. So yeah.
Malik, are we going to hear your voice briefly before we close?
Hi guys, hi everyone.
Lovely. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah, good to see all of you. Thanks for doing this. It's really exciting. Thank you.
Great. Okay. All right. So we can close now. Swastik, is there anything else we have to add?
No, nothing. Looking forward. Basically, there is a YouTube video where there are instructions. So please go there and take a look. Andrew will drop a link, or it's there on the HUL channel. And yeah, and I think maybe if people are interested, and please write into us. The email address is dear@urbanreadingforum.com, which you will realize is a clever wordplay. But write into us if you have any question, and we might just do a technical session just to run you through the tools and the methods of how to do that. Not the text and all of that, but the how to do hypothesis, how to log into the forum. So we can do a session like that if it is required. Yeah, that's all.
Andrew, do you want to show yourself? So there's the guy who put it all together. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Somebody is asking for the email address. Can we just share it here once?
I'll just type it in.
I will share it, but I will also ask everybody, please
it is.
go through the instructions on the website first. They're quite comprehensive. If you're having trouble, please write into us and we'll help you out first.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hi, folks. Thank you. Everyone enjoy the weekend.
Bye.
Enjoy the weekend. Bye bye.